So let's have a look at cancelling or shortening movement authorities. If something's happened and we want to reduce the amount of movement a train has got available, how can we do it safely? Well, the first thing to have a look at is the acknowledgement of messages. Every time that the trackside sends a radio message to an onboard, it can request an acknowledgement. And that's described in Chapter 3 of Subset 26. However, we need to be aware that it is only the receipt of a consistent message that generates the acknowledgement. It's only received. The processing and action are not guaranteed. For each part of the message, the filters described in Chapter 4 apply, both to the whole message and to the packets within it. That means that some of the information may be actioned, other bits may be stored for later processing, or they may just be ignored. So the acknowledgement message back from the onboard is not much use if we're trying to make a safety critical decision, such as shortening a movement authority. So what would happen if we update an MA? We send a new movement authority to the train. We could request acknowledgement, but it doesn't confirm that it's been processed. We need to consider what would happen if the new MA was longer or shorter than the one the train currently had stored on board. So let's start with the current MA stored on the train, and we send a message 3, the standard movement authority message, containing a replacement MA which is longer. What might happen? Well, the message may not be processed, in which case the MA will be unchanged. That's safe, just may not be what we actually want. However, if the message is processed, the MA will be changed to the new, longer MA, and that will be a success. If the message hasn't been processed, then the onboard will continue to request MA updates. The MA requests going back will trigger the process again. And so, hopefully, the next time the new replacement MA is sent, it will be processed and the train will be able to proceed. Now let's look at it the other way around. We have a longer MA, which we need to shorten for some reason. Perhaps we want to change the priority of trains. So we send a message 3 with a replacement MA. Again, we have two choices. The message may be processed, in which case the MA would be shortened. Alternatively, the MA may not be changed because the message is not processed for some reason. In either case, we have a problem. Just because the MA has been shortened doesn't mean the train will be able to stop within it. It may exceed it. And if the MA hasn't been changed, then we can't release any part of the route beyond which is contained within that MA. And because we don't know, then the trackside can make very little change to the movement authorities and the routes that have been set. Various people around Europe have identified this as an issue, and there have been change requests made in order for the onboard to be able to supply back to the trackside details of its current MA, whether it considers it can respect the end of authority, excuse me, whether it's in target speed or ceiling speed monitoring and other information, but those have not been processed. So message 3 is useful if we want to make a movement authority longer, but it is not much help to us if we want to shorten a movement authority. So what can we do instead? Because if we don't, and we release the route, we could end up with a collision. So we have an option. It's called request to shorten the MA. Message 9 is sent to the train, and the onboard does a calculation to see whether it could stop at the new end of authority without applying the emergency brake or tripping. And if so, it responds with message 137. If the train is already past the point where it would need to start braking to respect the new MA, it will respond with a message 138, rejecting the shortened movement authority. That allows the trackside to retain the locking for the full original MA. So let's have a look at that as a diagram. The movement authority goes from left to right, and our train is proceeding through the route. A new message is sent, message 9, containing a proposed movement authority. It is only the packet 15 movement authority. It doesn't need to include replacement track information or mode profiles. When message 9 is received, the train undertakes a calculation to work out when it would need to start braking in order to be able to stop at the end of the new movement authority. And providing the train's speed is below the brake curves that are being calculated, then message 9 will be accepted, and the new movement authority will apply, and the train will be able to proceed and stop within that movement authority. And because it has calculated that it can stop, it will send back message 137. If, however, the train was further on through the route, when message 9 arrives, and it does the calculations, it realizes that it can't stop at the new end of authority, and is likely to pass it and therefore trip. Therefore, it sends a message 138, rejecting the proposed change of movement authority and regards the previous movement authority as still applying. It's unchanged. So the request to shorten movement authority is useful to ask the train whether it can abide by the proposed new movement authority. Of course, you have to think about the driver. The driver would have been seeing a long movement authority, and if the new one is accepted, all of a sudden they may be required to start braking. And it can be that they are right at the point where the train would need to start intervening. And that could mean that you suddenly are having to apply the brakes, which could be uncomfortable or even dangerous. So what happens if we really do need to try and stop the train? The request to shorten only shortens the MA if it won't cause a brake intervention or trip. But sometimes it's actually more important. We need to try and stop the train entering the forward part of the route, or at least to slow it down. This could be down to something like a lorry hitting a bridge. It could be a problem with a tunnel. It could be that a rock fall has been detected or an avalanche. There might be a trespass incident and you wish to slow the trains down so that people are not hurt. Or there could be something at a level crossing. A number of reasons, each of which could be used for this purpose. So our movement authority is held by the train, and that is referenced back to our LRBG. Message 15 is the conditional emergency stop, and that contains a distance, D emergency stop, reference to the Belize group. And that distance is the location of the emergency stop. The train, on receiving message 15, compares D emergency stop with its distance from the LRBG, D LRBG, and takes account of the confidence interval. The test is based on, has the min safe front end passed the emergency stop location? In this case, it hasn't, so the CES will be accepted and a message is sent back to the trackside, message 147, to report that fact. The movement authority is shortened and the train can proceed as far as the end of the new movement authority. If, however, it exceeds that new movement authority, it will go into trip. So it will depend where exactly the train is when the emergency stop message is received as to whether a trip occurs or not. If, however, the train is further through the route, then when the message 15 is received, again, the emergency stop distance is used to evaluate whether the train has already passed the emergency stop location. And in this case, the min safe front end is past D emergency stop. And so message 147, CES rejected, is sent back. And the train can proceed without being affected. Now, if you think about this, it makes a bit of sense. If, for instance, there was an incident at a bridge at the emergency stop location, but the train is already over the bridge and proceeding away, there's no need to stop it because a bus or lorry has hit the bridge. If, however, it hadn't got to the bridge, you would want to try and stop it, or at least reduce its speed in case the bridge was damaged. Now, another use for the CES is for ghost trains. The trackside can detect when the train enters the next train detection section and send a CES for the start of that section. If the track circuit or the axle counter has failed, or if there is another unknown train moving ahead, then the CES will be applied to the following train, bringing it to a stand. And if you're interested in that, there is a guideline on the ERTMS user group website describing automatic track ahead free. So let's move on to look at unconditional emergency stops. Sometimes we just need to stop the train as quickly as possible, in which case we send message 16 to the onboard. The current front of the train immediately becomes the end of authority, and the onboard acknowledges that the UES has been applied. If the train is moving, it immediately goes to trip, and it will come to a stand as quickly as possible. So we've got 4 options where you can update the movement authority, but we have identified that that is not guaranteed to work. We've had the request to shorten movement authority, which will be accepted if it can be done without a brake intervention. The conditional emergency stop, which stops the train if it hasn't passed a given location, and the unconditional emergency stop, which just stops the train. So hopefully that's helped you to understand a few of the commands in ETCS.